Welcome to the August edition of What's in Bloom at the Ruth Bancroft Garden. Each month we put together a selection of plants that are in bloom in that particular month and print it out as a sheet that we give to garden visitors. And so we're going to go through the August What's in Bloom and have a look at what's going on this month at the Ruth Bancroft Garden. Starting off is Agave franzosinii. This is a very large agave, presumably from Mexico originally, but described from a garden in Italy where it was introduced. And back in the 1800s, the description was made from Italy. And that's why it has an Italian name, franzosinii. But presumably it did come from Mexico originally. But it's a very large growing agave with greenish yellow flowers, and that's towering up behind me in the background. It probably won't last the entire month, and we'll switch to something else when it's finished, but a magnificent plant making quite a statement in its flowering, Agave franzosinii. Here we have a penstemon. So there are quite a lot of penstemons in cultivation, some of them requiring quite a bit of water, and others desert penstemons that require very little. This one is Penstemon baccharifolius from Texas, and it's a relatively dry growing penstemon, and notable for its beautiful red flowers born prolifically in the summertime. This is a cultivar called Diablo that was introduced by Mountain States Wholesale Nursery in Arizona. And we like it for its long period of bloom and bright red flowers. Penstemon used to be in the family Scrophulariaceae, but the families have been rearranged and now it's in Plantagenaceae. But those two families are pretty close to each other, relatedness. Anyhow, Penstemon baccharifolius Diablo. Next up we have another agave. This is Agave bovicornuta from the Sierra Madre Occidental in northwestern Mexico. It is usually a single agave. Occasionally it makes a pup, but usually single. And it's a green agave, but when it blooms it starts to turn colors. And you can see all the pinks and reds and mauves that are appearing in the leaves as it comes into bloom. The name bovicornuta means cow horn and refers to the amazing teeth along the edge of the leaf. They're quite variable, little ones and big ones, and curve this way and that. This is an agave that belongs to the subgenus that has floral branching. So the flowers are in clusters at the ends of the branches. Some other agaves are just a spike of flowers without floral branches. Agave bovicornuta. Here we have a Brachychiton tree from Australia. We've had a little trouble on the identification of this tree. We got it originally as Brachychiton discolor, and for a while we're told that it was actually a hybrid between discolor and acerifolius, but now, after closely examining the flowers, we're convinced it really is pure Brachychiton discolor. In any case, this tree tends to lose lots of leaves before it flowers, and this year it really lost most of its leaves, and so it's been flowering a great deal. It's been in flower now for several months. The flowers are brown and have brown fuzz on the outside and are bubblegum pink on the inside. Really beautiful flowers, and it just keeps on making more month after month. Brachychiton is an Australian genus, and it used to be placed in the family Sterculiaceae, but now that whole family has been put into the Malvaceae, or the hibiscus family. So you might consider this a hibiscus tree, Brachychiton discolor. Here we have another agave, Agave tequilana, the agave from which tequila is made. So it's summertime in the Bancroft Garden. We really have a lot of agaves coming into flower, as you're seeing. And this one, Agave tequilana, is one that's been cultivated for many years and is the exclusive agave used to make tequila. It is related to Agave angustifolia and perhaps might be considered a form of angustifolia, but it has its own name, and it has a rosette of stiff, sword-like, bluish leaves. But as you can see, as it goes into flower, the chlorophyll withdraws from the leaves, and they begin to turn more pinks and mauves as it flowers. Of course, the flowering is the end of the life for an agave, and then it will wither and die afterwards. But meanwhile, here it is putting on a show with its greenish flowers and being visited by bees, which like the nectar in the agave flowers. Agave tequilana. Well, this isn't actually on the What's in Bloom list this month, but looking so nice, I thought we'd sneak it in here anyway. This is Bovicornuta distica, a bulb in the Amaryllis family from South Africa. It has a rosette in a fan of wavy blue-green leaves that are just starting to emerge here, but right now that inflorescence is on full display. Bovicornuta distica. Aloe is a large genus in the asphodel family, and many of the aloes come from Africa, but there are also some that come from Arabia. And that's true of this one, Aloe lavranosii, from Yemen. So unlike most of the aloes, this one has long hairs on the flower. As you can see when we zoom in to look at the flower close up, it comes in both a red or pinkish red and a yellow form, and this is the yellow one. It's not very commonly seen in cultivation, but exceptional for these hairy flowers from Yemen, Aloe lavranosii. Here we have another aloe. This one is Aloe mitriformis, a South African species. When we think of aloe, we often think of winter flowers, and there are many aloes that do flower in the winter, but there's no month that doesn't have some aloe species that's in flower, and Aloe mitriformis is a summer flowering one. It forms a clump, as you can see, and the leaves are blue-green in a shadier position or taking on purple tinges in more sun. The flowers are a coral pinkish red color and in rounded heads. Aloe mitriformis. Well, as I said, there are lots of agaves that bloom in the summertime, and here we have another one. This one is Agave tenuifolia from northeastern Mexico, notable for its green flowers and its very narrow needle-like leaves that have little curling threads at the base of the flower stalk. So this is related to the more common Agave striata, which is a much more widespread agave in northern Mexico. Tenuifolia is a little bit farther to the east and a little bit smaller in stature. It's not commonly seen in cultivation, but we really like it for its compact size and its beautiful green flowers. It is a member of the subgenus Litea, which is the agaves that do not have floral branches, so it's just a single spike of an inflorescence. Agave tenuifolia. This plant is Dasylirion wheeleri. It grows in the deserts of the southwest United States and also in northern Mexico. So the Dasylirions have separate male and female plants, and the male plant has pollen that the bees visit to gather the pollen, and the female plants have nectar that the bees visit for the nectar. And as they go back and forth between the two, then the plants get pollinated. This plant here is a male, and the bees are busy visiting the flowers and gathering the pollen from it. This is a very blue Dasylirion. Some other species have green leaves, and the leaves on the edge of the leaf are quite sharp but small, and they are yellow in color, so contrasting with the blue of the leaf. The Dasylirions are a widespread genus in Mexico and also in the southwestern United States, and this is one of the more commonly grown ones, Dasylirion wheeleri. We used to place Dasylirions in the family Nolanaceae, the Nolina family, but now that family has been put into the asparagus family as a subfamily Nolanoideae. But in either case, the whole family has separate male and female plants, as these ones do. Dasylirion wheeleri. This shrub with the red flowers is Russelia equisetiformis. So Russelia was long in the family Scrophulariaceae, like the Penstemons, but also like the Penstemons, it's been moved into the family Plantagenaceae, which is a closely related family. The DNA keeps on shaking things up and causing us to adjust the families these things are parked in. But in any case, a beautiful plant, oftentimes called the firecracker plant. I think with those bright red flowers you can see why. And the name equisetiformis is because it has little tiny leaves that aren't very conspicuous, and the green stems are reminiscent of those of a horsetail, equisetum, and so hence the name equisetiformis. It comes from Mexico and Guatemala and really does quite well for us here at the garden. Not as drought tolerant as some of the other plants, but once a week is fine for watering it. And these bright red flowers make it well worth the trouble of growing. Russelia equisetiformis. The genus Senecio is a large one in the daisy family with species from lots of different places, but many of the highly succulent ones that we grow in horticulture come from South Africa. And that's the case of this one, Senecio phycoides. This is a cultivar called skyscraper, bred to be extra tall and is really much taller than you usually would see it. It has little tiny white flowers, but really it's the leaves for which this is grown, the beautiful blue leaves. And in that respect it resembles some of the other Senecios like Senecio serpens and Senecio mandriliscae, but in this case extra tall. Senecio phycoides skyscraper. Here we have a tree in the Bignoniaceae, or trumpet vine family. This is Chilopsis linearis and has the common name of desert willow. And although it is a desert tree, it's not really related to a willow at all. Just simply the way that the branches arch over remind somebody of a willow. But the Chilopsis tree is a free-flowering tree. It loses its leaves in the wintertime, but then they come back in the spring and it blooms all summer long with these beautiful lavender flowers with blotches at the throat. A very attractive tree and provides sparse shade underneath it, under which a lot of succulents like to grow. Chilopsis linearis. Next up we have another agave, another large agave with a branching inflorescence, and this one was given the name Agave rascanensis. Now we consider that a synonym of Agave americana, so it's just a form of Agave americana. But you can see with its very large rosetta bluish leaves and its towering inflorescence, it's quite a dramatic plant when it comes into bloom. And this is actually the third rosette in this clump that has bloomed. So the clump is getting smaller and smaller because the rosettes die after they flower. However, it makes offsets, and so there are young ones coming along to replace them. Agave rascanensis or Agave americana. The genus Gasteria belongs to the asphodel family and is closely related to aloe, but Gasteria is a smaller genus and much more localized. Almost all the species occur in South Africa, just spilling over a bit into a couple of neighboring countries. The largest of all the Gasterias is this one, Gasteria excelsa, and it comes from South Africa's Eastern Cape province. And it has sword-like leaves and very tall branched inflorescence with little dangling pink flowers with a green tip, and really a lot of flowers in an inflorescence. Gasteria excelsa is a very easy plant to grow, and you can grow it from a leaf, unlike an aloe, which you cannot grow from a leaf. It flowers in the summertime, and actually this plant already had one inflorescence that's finished, and now it's on its second one, beginning the second one. Gasteria excelsa. Echeverias belong to the Crassulaceae, or the stonecrop family, and many of them come from Mexico. There is one species called Echeveria gibiflora, which is common in the mountains around Mexico City, and it has been bred. Some of the plants have a little bit of roughness at the edge of the leaf, and that trait's been bred and bred and bred to exaggerate it, and you get these amazing plants like this one, Echeveria Lace, that have that trait in spades. And here we see the flower stalk coming up with the pink flowers. They tend to flower in late summer through the fall and into the winter months. And really amazing for their incredible rosettes of crinkly leaves, but then the flowers are like icing on the cake. Echeveria Lace. Well, here's another plant that's not actually on the What's in Bloom list, but it's looking pretty spectacular now, and I thought we'd sneak it in. And this is Brunsvigia josephinae in the Amaryllis family, another South African bulb. The bulb itself is enormous, like at least as big as a football, and only partly above the ground and partly below the ground. And it's dormant all summer long, nothing going on, and then at the end of the summer we get this amazing spike of flowers, and then afterwards the leaves come out, and the leaves persist all winter long. Brunsvigia josephinae. Continuing with our Echeveria theme, here we have another of the large growing Echeverias, Echeveria gigantea. It's closely related to Echeveria gibiflora, but from a little bit farther east, and it has similar flowers, a stalk that comes out in the late summer and into the fall and winter, and pinkish flowers, and its leaves have a nice red margin to them. Not as crinkly as what we saw on Echeveria Lace, but with a little bit of wiggliness on the edge as well. Echeveria gigantea. Here we have a smaller Echeveria. This one is a hybrid called Neon Breakers. It greatly resembles Echeveria shaviana, which is a small frilly Echeveria from northeast Mexico. And it's a hybrid, but we don't really know what else is in it. But it does look a lot like shaviana and has the shepherd's crook type of inflorescence that you see with that species, where the flower stalk comes up and then curls over at the tip. It has purple bracts and pink flowers, which make a wonderful combination. And the rosettes of leaves are really extremely beautiful because they are wavy at the edges. The leaf is purple and the edge is pink, really making a wonderful color statement. Echeveria Neon Breakers. Among the many aloe species that grow in South Africa, there's a group called the grass aloes. We don't see these in common cultivation in California because they come from areas that get lots of rain in the summer and no rain at all in the wintertime, just the opposite of what we get in California. And they generally don't do that well here in California. But this is one, Aloe cooperi, that does do well. It comes from the eastern part of South Africa, and as long as we water it in the summer when its growing period comes along, it will tolerate our winter rains as well. The flowers kind of look like candy corn, and they always come in the summertime, and sometimes with successive inflorescences. Here we can see there's the stalk that's in bloom, and then a second one coming along afterwards to keep the show going. Aloe cooperi. Next we have a palm, Butea capitata, which is a South American species, and it's known as the jelly palm because it has tasty orange or yellow-orange fruits in the fall. Right now it's in flower, and you can see the spike of flowers coming out from between the leaves, very attractive to bees. And as that flower develops into a fruit, then the inflorescence becomes more heavy and starts to hang down, and then eventually becomes full of fruit in the fall. Butea capitata is a slow-growing palm, but a very easy palm to grow, and doesn't mind our occasional freezes here at the Bancroft Garden. Butea capitata. Well, I've been here at the Bancroft Garden for many years, and over the years I've done quite a lot of aloe hybridizing, and this is one of my hybrids. This is Aloe zub x elegans. Aloe zub comes from Sudan and Aloe elegans from Ethiopia. And zub has yellow flowers and elegans more orange flowers, so you see the nice yellow-orange tone of the hybrid. It's a late summer to fall flowering aloe, and it does cluster over time with these arching leaves that are blue-green with a few spots on them and reddish teeth. Aloe zub x elegans. Cotyledon orbiculata is a very widespread species in South Africa and very variable. So the leaves can be small and they can be large, they could be round, they could be spoon-shaped, they could be green, they could be gray, they could be white, and oftentimes with a red edge. This is a particular form called Cotyledon orbiculata variety spuria, and it comes from South Africa's Little Karoo area. Has extra tall flower stalks with a rather pale flower, kind of a greenish yellow on the outside, and with some orange where the petal tips curl back. Cotyledon orbiculata variety spuria. That brings us to the close of our August What's in Bloom. But note that there are always things coming into flower at the Bancroft Garden, some of which don't last more than a few days, some of which are long-lasting, some little and some big. And we urge you to come to the garden and see for yourself all the wonderful things that are going on here at the Ruth Bancroft Garden.